Thank you so much for being here tonight. Debates or interaction between candidates is not something that we get a lot of here in the 8th District, but especially in Hudson County. People putting platforms in front of the voters and asking the voters to choose them based on those ideas is something that's foreign to Hudson County politics. Unfortunately, it's something that people would find in any healthy democracy. So there's a lot of work to be done in Hudson County, and part of this conversation here tonight is part of that idea that the best form of government is that which has the consent of the people. That's a process by which people put their ideas in front of the general public and asks those people to choose the ideas that they're putting before them opposed to another candidate. Again, that's not really something we see too much of in Hudson County, and that's the very reason that we're here tonight. My name is Hector Oseguera, and as some of you might know, I ran for Congress in the last cycle. I currently am the chair of outreach for Force the Issue New Jersey, which is one of the sponsors of this event. I'd like to ask for a hand for Force the Issue New Jersey. Force the Issue is a group of progressives who are trying to put together the tools that will someday help us bring a more democratic form of government to Hudson County. I'm also here on behalf of the Progressive Democrats of Hudson County, an organization which is the more localized version of the Progressive Democrats of New Jersey. Again, we're trying to give people more of a choice at their ballot box. And finally, on behalf of the Good Government Coalition of New Jersey, an organization that's fighting for good government and transparency, most often manifested in the issue that we call the county line. If you have any questions about that, please talk to me after this event. I'm now going to go to our two candidates who are here running for the congressional seat of the 8th District. They'll have 3 minutes for an opening statement, and then we're going to go to some questions. After that, we're going to take some questions which we had solicited from social media, and as our third round, we will ask if there's any questions from the audience, and we'll allow some participation from the crowd. That's basically the gist of the show tonight. John?
Yeah, hey everyone. I think most of you know, but just in case you don't, John Heinis from Hudson County View. Just want to say thanks to Force the Issue, Good Government Coalition of NJ, Progressive Democrats of Hudson County for allowing me to be a co-moderator on this. Thanks to Hector for reaching out. And yeah, looking forward to a spirited discussion tonight. And just before we get going, I just wanted to let everyone know, I'm pretty sure if you're in this room, you know that Rob Menendez is not coming, but if you didn't, he's not attending this evening. And I just wanted to read you the statement that he put out on Tuesday. So he said, "We unfortunately will not be participating in the forum this Friday hosted by Force the Issue, Good Government Coalition of NJ, Progressive Debs of Hudson County, but thank you for encouraging a healthy conversation. We were disappointed to learn that a date had been set for this forum, despite never being asked to confirm our attendance by the organizers. Nonetheless, we look forward to future opportunities to participate in a forum with our fellow candidates." So I think you get the point. I mean, there's a little more, but I spoke to him one-on-one, and he told me that he's committed to doing a debate before the June 7th primary. So hopefully we can all look forward to that, and you know, I'm hoping to be a part of it. So check me out on Twitter, and check out Hudson County View, Facebook, Instagram, and you know, we want to keep you updated on that.
First of all, thank you, Hector and John, for inviting me here. I will focus on my passion for victory and the New Jersey primary race for Congressional District 8. At this point, I have visited every town in the district, and I would be honored to represent all of you in Congress. I have no desire to criticize or argue with either one of my opponents. David, I appreciate you showing up. I really do. My campaign isn't against anyone. This campaign is to ensure that I win the congressional seat. I am the only candidate who checks off every box of what the public should look for when choosing candidates to represent them for federal elected positions. I am the only candidate who is an educator in the public school system. I am the only candidate who has worked in the public, private, and entrepreneur space. I'm the only candidate that has lived in Europe, Asia, and in the United States. Additionally, I spent about 7 weeks in Israel during college with a program sponsored by the State Department called Educating for Democracy. My family roots are military. My dad was a sergeant and my mom worked in various capacities on the bases on which we were stationed. She sometimes did hair, worked at a sub shop once called Luigi's. She worked at the base NCO club, and she was a face of a place called Videorama in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, where families could order videos of their family members who have just become soldiers. I grew up working class. With the challenges coming directly at a woman's right to choose to do what she wants with her body, meaning Roe versus Wade, we need more rational women in Congress to fight for what's right, our right to choose. My platform speaks to everyone. Public education, a thorough and efficient public education. Free college education or post-school training. Not everybody wants to go to college. Some people want to go to technical school, vocational school, but money should never be an issue for anybody pursuing their post-high school education. Dreamers have to become citizens. I work with someone who can teach your children, but yet she cannot vote. Think about that. She is trusted with your children, but cannot vote. That needs to change immediately. I back the Green New Deal. We are in a serious crisis right now. We all have to do what we can to make a difference. On the personal level, walk, take your bike, public transportation. And there's other things as well I'm sure we'll get into. I also believe in recreation centers for teenagers. This is investing in our children. I believe in safety, police, and ICE. Now, before we go into and say, but we know about—
15 seconds.
Okay, 15 seconds? Okay, so, and as a nod to my creative background, I'm pushing for a Secretary of Culture. And finally, I am in front of you because of the great people of the state and nation, the American people, who have to understand that the Democratic Party is a party of people who are driven by rationality, facts, and integrity.
Whenever you're ready, David.
Well, first, I want to say thank you to the organizers that are sponsoring this event today. Thank you to Hector and John for hosting us. And thank you to Ani for, like you said, doing the effort and actually making time to speak with the communities that we want to represent. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is David Ocampo-Grajales. I'm a first-generation American, born and raised in New Jersey to a working-class family. My family came here from Colombia in search of a better life. And I'm running because the residents of the 8th District work hard each and every single day just to make ends meet. But every year it gets harder. Rent goes up, but income stays the same. Health insurance gets more expensive, but always covers less. Every year the floods get worse, while the fossil fuel companies rake in record profits and price gouge at the pump. And so the district deserves a representative who's going to work as hard as they do, who understands the problems that we're facing and meets them with the urgency that these challenges require. And I believe that to have that urgency, you need to have actually lived with the struggles of everyday Americans. And I have. The best experience that I have is growing up working class. Because the issues that we're going to be talking about today, they're not just talking points for me. They're not just headlines we see on the news. They're incredibly, incredibly personal. I care about healthcare because when my dad had a cancer scare, he had to delay his retirement just to be able to pay for his medical exams. I care about immigration because I know what it's like to worry about a loved one getting a knock on the door from ICE. I care about student loans because I myself have tens of thousands of dollars in student loans, and they're weighing down an entire generation. And so we deserve a champion who's going to work tirelessly every single day to fight for change. And that's what I intend to do. So I look forward to discussing some of these topics today, and thank you to all of you out there for coming and listening. Absolutely. So, coming June 8th, win or lose, I'm probably going to take a pretty long nap first. But I think the issue that I hear most often, and it's different depending on where you are in the district, but it's about climate change and protecting the environment. If you're in Jersey City or if you're in Hoboken, you're worried about the floods that are getting worse every year. I had one resident tell me that his home had flooded more in the last 2 years than they did in the prior 20. If you're in Newark, you're worried about the new power plant and the pollution that's poisoning the air, that's causing increased rates of asthma. And so one of the policies that I'm going to be fighting hard for is a Green New Deal, and I'm proud to have been recognized as a Green New Deal champion alongside progressive leaders like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Senator Bernie Sanders, and Senator Ed Markey. And the Green New Deal calls for us to invest in high-speed rail and electric vehicles, to retrofit existing buildings to make them more energy efficient. But fundamentally, it recognizes that the threat of climate change is existential. But it doesn't have to be all doom and gloom, because in the process of solving it, we can create millions of good-paying union jobs. Now, in terms of how we get that passed, it would be misleading if I told you that, hey, you elect me, you vote for me, and I'm going to make sure every single one of these things gets passed. But there's a difference between transactional change and transformational change. And transformational change requires people going in day after day to fight for the people that they represent. And I don't want there to be any doubt about who I want to represent. My campaign isn't taking a single dime from corporate PACs, from lobbyists, from fossil fuel companies, because I want to be held accountable by the people in this room, people of the 8th District. And so when I get to Congress, yeah, I'm going to be hounding Joe Manchin, I'm going to be hounding Kirsten Sinema, working with other progressives, helping to elect more progressives across the country, but always bringing it back to the community that I represent, talking to voters and getting your input on what needs to be done.
Thank you.
Thank you. So June the 8th happens. Okay. June the 8th happens. My first thing that I'm going to do, last week, the state of New Jersey legalized recreational cannabis. So I went to a cannabis shop in Elizabeth. The line was long, and it was a diverse group of people. We need to make cannabis legal at the federal level. By doing that, it will become part of the excise taxes, and the federal government can make money to pay for these programs that I want to put forth, mainly free college education, and also, just as you said, David, with student loans. The government should pay off people's student loans. The cannabis industry is a cash business. A lot of money is being made, and it needs to be legalized at the federal level. So that's the first. I'm going to really fight for that one. Now, he also mentioned flood. So my house was flooded by Sandy. That was not a good time. Was not a good time at all. So I know that climate change is real. It's absolutely real. And whatever programs, what we need to do as a society to alleviate and decarbonize the environment, we have to do it. I actually have some printouts here that Miracle will give you about decarbonization, in case you don't know what that is, but it's a nice graphic that you can just take a look at.
30 seconds.
So, okay, that's it. Thank you.
All right, great, thank you very much. Okay, so we'll keep going back and forth on who starts, so Anna can start this one. So you're running, obviously you guys are running as challengers, and it's technically an open seat. We've heard a lot about how Rapidez is anointed and how this is going to be, a cakewalk for him and all that. So what made you guys decide that you weren't going to buy into the hype and you were going to put your names on the ballot and give it the old college try here?
That's a great question. Well, I have wanted to serve the public for a long time at a higher level. I've been a school teacher. I'm a public school teacher in Weehawken. I teach history, and I have a master's in American history. So when I found out that Albio Ceres was not seeking re-election, I just went for it. Because we're a democracy, when a seat is open, we as citizens have the right to run, period. There's no other thing to that. no other thing to it. So why would I not run? I know I'm a good candidate. I know I can represent the people in the district well, and I know I can help the country move forward.
Great, thank you. David?
So, for me, democracy is about competing ideas. It's about actually working to represent the people that are in your community. And I think the situation with Menendez was incredibly unique. I mean, before he even announced he had received endorsements from the majority of local party officials. It doesn't sound very democratic to me. And I think to challenge that, it's about what it represents. So nothing against Menendez Jr. or Menendez Sr., but more of the same is not what we need. More of not just the same last name, but the same practices, where we're not bothering to get out there and connect with the community. Because that's what we really need. We need someone who's ready to not just listen to the people, but to turn that into action. And when you're too comfortable where you are, when you don't feel that urgency because the problems that we're fighting for don't really apply to you. You might understand them, philosophically, or you might know the statistics, but you've never experienced them firsthand, then you're not going to fight with the same urgency that we all deserve. There's a lot of things that we need to work on. I think we need to make colleges free. I think we need to cancel student loans. We need to fix our broken healthcare system. We need to work on our justice system.
30 seconds.
And all these things that are going on that we need change on. So we need a champion. So that's why I jumped in, because I think we deserve someone who actually looks like, who's actually lived the experiences of the majority of.
Can you share with us a major obstacle that you've come across in this campaign, and share with us how you overcame that obstacle?
I am a commissioner on the Amistad Commission. I have been very active in my local community. I sit on the pool committee. Weehawken now has a pool. So that was my 5th grade class many years ago. Because I'm running against this county line, people have been supportive, but quiet supportive. They know what I'm about. They know my integrity. They know my value system. So while I have words of wisdom, there is no one that has come out to support me. And that's it. Thank you, David.
I think so this is the first time I've run for office. And there's a couple things that I already kind of knew, but I think have been confirmed now that I'm fully in it. They don't make running for office easy if you're not well connected. They don't make running for office easy if you're not pretty wealthy. Because there are an incredible amount of rules and regulations that are incredibly easy to trip over, and for most candidates, if you've raised millions of dollars, you have teams of consultants working on this exact same thing. And so there are all these barriers that are preventing everyday people from running for office. And there's no guidebook. You can't go to the NJ Department of State and figure out, all right, how can I run for Congress? Or how can I run for city council or mayor, whatever it may be. But even though it's your right, they don't make it easy. And so what's been really good about running for Congress, though, is being able to get out there every day and talk to people and connect with people and listen to the challenges that you're facing. My parents, so my dad is a truck driver. My mom, she cleaned houses for a long time. The immigrant experience in this country is of hard work, and it's kind of unique. But we're a country of immigrants, and so being able to actually get out there and figure out and listen and say, well, actually, our problems aren't so different.
30 seconds.
What we're experiencing isn't so different. And then people realize change is possible, but it's possible when people realize their own power. not just as individuals, but as a collective. And so being able to get out there and talk to people and hear their stories, it inspires me every single day.
Thank you, David. All right, so we'll start with you this time. So obviously, we spend a lot of time, and I certainly spend a lot of time talking about how the 8th District, Hudson County, is a bit of a rough and tumble district, you know, a little bare-knuckle boxing going on during these election cycles, right? But can you share with us a story from the campaign trail that highlights the beauty of the district?
That is not where I thought that question was going.
Trying to keep you guys guessing.
Let me think on that first.
You want me to go first? Because I have a story.
Go.
Sure, if you want to go first.
Yeah, because I'll give you a minute to think about that one. Just 2 days ago, I was campaigning in Newark. So I'm walking around, you know, hi, I'm Roseborough-Eberhard running for Congress, here's my card. So there's a man behind me, so I, like, hi, I'm Roseborough, running for Congress, and he says, you need to buy a bulletproof vest. I'm like, what? Why would I do that? Obviously, you're naive. You've never run for public office before. And I'm like, okay, thank you. Don't kill me. Like, that was the weirdest thing that just happened to me. And that is a campaign story that I will always tell. I'm sure the guy wasn't, I honestly, I don't even know. I don't know. But that literally just happened a couple of days ago. Do I need to buy a bulletproof vest?
Well, that's a tough one to top. Give it a try.
Well, I thought it was about the beauty of it.
Uh,
But I mean, he was looking out for you in that sense. 'Cause
I
he's
guess
probably
so.
right to an extent.
I guess
And I've got
so.
a million stories like that. But I mean, yesterday actually we were in the Heights. We were going door to door canvassing, and I ran into a pair of retirees. One woman was from Ecuador, and the other woman was from the Dominican Republic. We were chatting in Spanish, and we were talking about the race, and she was like, well, aren't you a little young to run for Senate? And I was like, no, like, it's actually his son. But after just talking about, you know, their experiences here in the country, and, you know, some of the things that are going well for them, you know, some of the things that they're really struggling with, like the property taxes, for example, like the streets and the bridges when they try to get around. At the end of a long conversation, she turns to me and she goes, you got to make sure that you bundle up, because I'm worried you're going to get sick in this wind. There's just something about someone you just met a moment ago caring genuinely for not just your well-being, but yeah, I guess for you as a person. And I think the district is filled with people like that. People who are ready to connect and be open and share their stories. And that's just, I think the people who live here are just beautiful in that sense.
all right, that's quite a contrast of stories. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thinking about the 8th District, I was often also told that I should get a bulletproof vest or buy a car bombing insurance. I'm not sure who sells that, but
Wow,
how's it
okay.
come up?
That sounds
Maybe I-
expensive.
So this is going to be a little bit of a two-parter. Politics is always about who you can get to your side and who you can get to support you. So can you share with us somebody whose support you're very proud to have, and as a part B, share with us someone whose support you're still looking for, or a group, or someone whose support you're still looking to shore up. So the first part is somebody whose support you're proud to have, and the second part is somebody whose support you're still looking to get. And we'll start with David this time.
Early on, I think I was we were canvassing 8th Street here in downtown Jersey City. We were making it right to the end of the street. And I go up to a family, and they tell me they've been here 40 years. We start the conversation, and they're like, oh, well, we're not in your district. We're in NJ-10. And I was like, well, the map's changed. You're in my district now. And it was just, I think them having been a part of the community for so long, I think it was like 40 years, and they were skeptical. They were trying to brush me off at first, say, well, we'll get the mailers, and I told them, well, listen, we don't have quite that much yet. But as we were just communicating, I think what it came down to wasn't even just policy issues. Because on the policy, we agreed on almost everything. What they wanted to know was that once I'm in Congress, that I was actually going to fight for them. That I'm not just saying all these words, and then I'm going to get there and completely forget and disappear. And there was a moment where he finally kind of changed his mind, and he had his mother sitting behind him, and he asked me a question, well, how do I know you're not going to become a crook, just like the rest of them? And I said, well, if I become a crook, my mom's going to kick my ass. And he turned to his mom, and he was like, you know what? Me too. And so I was like, at that point, he told me I had his vote. And it's having those conversations like that, where, I think there's a lot more to be had, right? So we talk about, or people talk about, this district is impossible, there's a certain set of, machine voters or establishment voters, and I don't think that's true. I think that, when you get down to it and you have a conversation, you can win people over.
10 seconds.
And so it's just a matter of having that conversation with as many people as possible in what remains of the campaign.
All right, so for me, with the first part, who am I proud that is supporting me? Keith Beauchamp. Some of you may not know his name, but he was the journalist and the filmmaker who had the Emmett Till case reopened. So everybody is aware of Emmett Till. Keith Beauchamp, because of his tenacity, he had the case reopened, and right now, the woman who accused Emmett Till of sassing her is free. And so we know what happened to young Emmett. Now, whose support do I need? Up until this point, I have taken no money from anybody, okay? I know that gas is very expensive. I know that eggs are expensive. Milk, the price of basic grocery goods are expensive for people. And because I grew up the way that I did, I'm very cognizant of that. I would really rather a family keep their money to buy the things that they need. However, over the last couple of days, I have been made aware that in order to get the support of various unions, I need to start taking money, okay? And that is something that I will probably have to do. But in doing so, I do believe that there needs to be a change in campaign finance. A big change. Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys. So yeah, let's expand on that a little bit. So obviously we're talking this evening a little bit about the institutional advantages of the line, and certainly Vorst the issue talks about that frequently too. But anyway, so the point that I'm getting to is, we see Rob Menendez, he's got, I believe it was in the neighborhood of $893,000 in his campaign account. So, he has that, he obviously has a well-oiled campaign team. So how do you guys feel that you could overcome those kind of odds?
We are not going to raise $1 million. What we have to do is focus on ourselves and our campaigns and show the people of Congressional District 8 that either one of us would represent them 100% in Congress with all of our abilities.
So in terms of beating the financial advantage, I'm sure that having a ton of money is nice, but it doesn't beat going door to door and talking to people. And I think where our campaign is exceeding is in getting people excited. And so we've had over 60 volunteers in district sign up to knock on doors, canvass, send text for us, and then add 40 more nationwide that are just excited, helping us to get out the word. And so I think it's more a matter of, it's not as much of changing people's minds as it is letting them know that there's an alternative. An alternative who's ready to listen, who's ready to actually fight for change, who's ready to get out there day in and day out to work for things like Medicare for All, to work for a Green New Deal, to work for free public colleges and universities. And when that message connects, it works. And so, yeah, I'm sure raising tons of money from PACs and, I think he even got $10,000 from his father's own PAC. That might be nice. But, I want to be held accountable by the people in this room, not the usual suspects. And to what you said earlier, you're right. I mean, politics shouldn't be a game about who has the most money. Because the reality is that dark money is destroying our politics. It's a major reason that we can't get anything done in Congress, and it's a major reason why things get stuck even here at home. And so working to reverse the terrible decision that was Citizens United to get our dark money out of politics, and ultimately, in my opinion, I think we should move towards publicly financed elections, so that people can actually battle on ideas and not just cash.
All right, thank you.
I think it's a positive. You had these two major Democratic parties. I mean, look, when the country first started out, there were no parties, and some of the founding fathers warned the people about having parties, how it would really separate the people, and people would become more loyal to a party than the constituents, than the American people. We have the Electoral College. We have had at least two situations where a person who should have been president won the popular vote, but because they lost the Electoral College vote, they didn't become president. We can go back to Al Gore when he should have been president, and I believe Miss Hillary Clinton, she won the popular vote as well. I believe that the Electoral College should be reviewed and really should come under more scrutiny, and we need to consider replacing it or getting rid of it completely.
Thank you.
So the question was, is the two-party system good for the country? No. I think we need to, on the one hand, we have the Democratic Party, which is a big tent party, but not all Democrats are the same. You have the Joe Manchins of the world, and then you have that all the way to the Bernie Sanders of the world. And on the other hand, we have the Republican Party, which on January 6th tried to overthrow our government. That has been stonewalling every single piece of legislation in Congress, that is actively trying to take away a woman's rights to control her own body, that's trying to take away the right to vote from communities of color and people of color across this country, that are just creating an incredible amount of damage. And so on the one hand, we have, a wide coalition, and on the other hand, we have, bordering on fascism. And so I think we need to move to a ranked choice voting system to eliminate the first past the post system and make sure that people aren't just strategically voting, but that their voice in every single vote actually counts. That's what we need to do. And then the other part of it is, speaking of the Electoral College, we should expand the size of the House. So the House is fixed because of the Permanent Apportionment Act of 1929. Which means that right now the average, representative in Congress represents about 800,000 people. In 1910, that was about 250,000 people. How are you supposed to have a close relationship with your representative? Expanding the House would make representation more proportional, and at the same time, it would fix the Electoral College, which gets its winning number from the total number of representatives in Congress, both the House and the Senate. And so moving towards ranked choice voting, which would end strategic voting and allow for third parties to come up. Anything that gives people more power and not just institutional power, because even here in Hudson County, we have one party. We have the Democratic Party. And so that's not really democracy either.
Again, another social media question. So we talked a lot about the machine, but we're going to go in a different direction here. So tell us what local official that you look up to that inspires you, and someone the audience would be familiar with on that note. So David, if you could indulge us, please.
Is Solomon in the room somewhere?
He is.
Hey, Councilmember Solomon. Solomon actually inspires me. Because he did what we're currently trying to do. And the way that he did it was by actually listening to the people in the community, by actually getting out there and talking to them. And as a council member, he always votes in the best interest of the community. And, sometimes it's 7-1, but always taking the right stance and keeping it to, the issues of the community. That's just incredibly inspiring. And then, beating in the machine, there you go. So, that's my council member.
For me, I'm going to say Brian Stack. Because I've lived in Weehawken now for 20 years, and I've been getting my hair done in Union City for about 20 years as well, at Susanna's. Brian Stack, when people have a problem, this man helps. He has a call to action button that just activates. People, as I've been canvassing, as I've been campaigning, Hoboken, up in Union City, everybody tells me how great Brian Stack is. That's what I'm hearing from people. That's what I'm hearing. He gives his phone number out to everybody. As a matter of fact, with Weehawken, we have a bike organization. They met with him a couple of days ago, and Union City has bike lanes throughout Union City. They're putting bike, that is incredible. That's incredible. So he really listens to people. He also gives out turkeys at Thanksgiving, but that's a whole other thing. So that's a whole other thing. But no, I respect that. I respect that people say that he does, he helps them, and I've heard that now from multiple people in this district. So I'm going to give it to him from that. He's the one local politician that everybody has said good things about. So I'll say Brian Stack.
Thank you. Yes, I think the audience is familiar with Senator Stack, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say they're familiar with Councilman Solomon.
Hub at Newark Airport. Amazon has a very bad track record of violating workers' rights to organize and is responsible for more than half of all serious injuries in New Jersey in 2021 in the private sector. What would you do to rein in the power of Amazon and ensure they respect workers' rights and the rights of communities of color? We'll start with David on that.
Absolutely. So, for starters, I would not have been in favor of that. I know that the community didn't get a say, and it was a decision of the Port Authority. For starters, I don't think that any government approvals, I don't think any government funds, subsidies, or special contracts should be going to companies that don't meet basic standards of providing a living wage, of providing good benefits like paid time off, like sick leave, like family leave. Amazon is not one of those companies. So to expand on that point further, one of the things that I'm going to be focusing on in Congress is making sure that we empower unions. We just saw in Staten Island, a unionized Amazon warehouse. From my experience working in environmental compliance and worker safety, unionized workplaces, they understand safety. Because a unionized workforce, they're more likely to assert their rights. They're more likely to report OSHA violations, where the inverse is also true. Non-unionized workplaces are more than happy to pay the fine as long as it costs less than taking safety measures. And so, not only holding these companies accountable, but empowering the workers to be able to take a stand for themselves and make a change and have a say in how their workplace is run, that's incredibly important. And making sure that in every decision like this one that's going to affect a community, because that's going to add pollution to the air of Newark, that we actually involve the community in that decision. They're the most important stakeholders. This is their home. And so making sure that community leaders, grassroots organizations, and everyday people have a seat at the table when these types of decisions are made, that's what I'm going to be doing in Congress.
So full disclosure, my brother works for Amazon in South Carolina. They're not unionized, but according to him, it's not a bad experience. And I know we want to vilify Amazon, but his experience, according to him, is fine. However, as a member of the NJ-08, I believe in unionization. Workers have to have the opportunity, if they would like to, unionize without any sort of pushback. And so I was really proud of what those people were able to accomplish out on Staten Island. As a matter of fact, I shared it with my students. And I was like, this is the power of people. And the guy that did it, he had a really, really hard time. But luckily his tenacity worked out and they were able to unionize. I just believe in unions, period. Thank you.
No problem. We're good at talk now. Someone asked, will you commit to securing funding for the Hudson-Bergen light rail extension that includes Bergen County? Yeah.
Listen, of course, light rail, any form of mass public transportation is good. The light rail, we have it going through Weehawken. A lot of the students use it. I've used it many times. Absolutely, I think it should be extended. We need to have we need to have transportation that is available to everybody, and that line should be extended. Now, payment for it, of course, through taxes and government grants and all that kind of stuff. So, but I think it should be extended.
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. The Hudson-Bergen light rail should be extended to Bergen. I mean, it's almost like the name is aspiration. But for 10 years, that project's been held up on permitting and impact assessments and all these different things. Fundamentally, what that means is that there's no one actually out there fighting for it. There's no one actually out there fighting to expand our public transportation system here at home. So there's things like the Gateway Tunnel. There's all these different projects that are looking to, ship us off back and forth to and from New York City. And that's important because we have a lot of commuters. But I think it's just as important for us to connect our communities here at home. So that means expanding the light rail, even going beyond that and making sure that we have public transportation that connects every single city in the 8th District and across northern New Jersey, including Bergen County. It's making sure that we're investing in not expanding highways like we're working on right now, but actually transitioning to maybe electric buses and other methods of public transportation that connect our communities, keep us closer together, make our air cleaner, save people, right? Less traffic, more parking spots. So it's good if you have a car, if you need to have a car, and it's good if you don't have a car, to give people options to keep our environment clean.
All right, great. Appreciate
Would you support legislation that allows overdose prevention sites to operate? And how would you lobby in Washington, either to the DOJ or to the president, to support providing these sorts of services at a federal level?
So I can also share with you that I've lived in Switzerland a couple of times in my life.
Just move the mic a little.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
I've lived in Switzerland a couple of times in my life. Many years ago, when they had a serious crisis, they solved the problem with overdosing by providing services to help people who were having issues. And that service was involving clean needles and setting up clinics. And 60 Minutes actually did a piece on it. This was years ago. I've been to that park where it was known as the Overdose Park, and it's now clean because those measures work. So what I would initially do is really do a deep dive, a deep study on what they did in Switzerland and then emulate those policies here because it worked there. I saw it for myself. Okay?
Thank you.
So in terms of the overdose prevention sites, I absolutely agree and would support that. I think the drug war was a complete failure. It doesn't help anyone to, further push people down. So we should start prioritizing helping people and rehabilitating people and not just sending them off to prison. And a key part of that is making sure we're providing clean needles, that we're providing places like these sites, that we're educating people on exactly these types of issues, that we're holding the companies that caused the opioid epidemic in the first place accountable. And this is why something like Medicare for All is so important. Because recovery can take years. Some people say it never ends. And it's a constant battle. And so making sure that people can actually have access to the health care that they need, whether that means mental health care, whether that means certain prescriptions which lower the impact of the urges of addiction. So many resources and so many more become available every single year with research. They're just out of reach for people because healthcare in this country is absolutely broken. And so making sure people can get the help they need, that's why it's so important. That's a really good question. So the question is, paying income tax here if you, say, work from home and for a company in New York. Is that what it's? Right. That's a complicated issue, and I think one of the challenges that New Jersey has is because we have so many commuters, all that tax money gets funneled over to New York. And the impact of that is because we don't get that income tax money, the only avenue we have to push every single year is property tax increase, property tax increase, property tax increase. And so, I think it would make sense for the federal government to step in and start brokering a deal there, because New York is the one who's not coming to the table. New York is the one who's refusing to sign an agreement that allows us to either keep our tax dollars here or has some reciprocity. And so that's something I would definitely support, because I think New Jersey property taxes can't get much higher.
Listen, I concur. My neighbors are here. We don't want to pay any more property taxes. Our property taxes, I think, are going up again. So we need to find other ways to finance school systems in our towns without going back to the middle class and upping our property taxes. Now, I would agree with David on this one. It's a little bit of a complicated issue because people don't want more money taken out of their paychecks. You already get a lot taken out of your paycheck already for state taxes, federal taxes, and then everything else in between. So this will require me, I don't want to just say an answer just to say something. This will really require me to do a little bit more research, and then I could come up with something for you.
All right, great. So like I said, that was the last social media question, but we're happy to allow the audience members to ask a few. Just by a show of hands, anyone interested?
All right, go ahead. Introduce yourself and just tell us where you're from.
Hey, thanks so much. My name is Campbell. I'm from up in West New York. I'm a health justice organizer with North New Jersey DSA. I'm a diabetic struggling. I have almost $10,000 in medical costs this year alone. In addition, the district is not doing that great by a lot of health metrics. In 2019, state health assessment data estimated that 13.5% of Hudson County residents were uninsured, and that life expectancy in the county is 3 years lower than the state average at 72 versus 75. More recently, Hoboken and Jersey City both passed Medicare for All resolutions. Contrast that with Albio's Representative Sierras, who supported Medicare for All in 2017, but then during repeated attempts to call his office to get him to sign on to the latest legislation, repeatedly stonewalled myself and my DSA comrades. So my question to both of you is, can you commit to championing Medicare for All when elected to Congress? But also, what other health initiatives would you introduce in the district to expand affordable health care to all residents? Thank you.
Yes, I'll start with that. Absolutely agree that Medicare for all is a really good idea. I can really attest to these things. I was on vacation in Europe, in France. My son had an accident. The doctor had to come to the hotel room. The doctor had to give medicine. My bill was $20. That's what my bill was. We have a serious problem in this country when it comes to medication, when it comes to health care in general. That will be on my list to try to remedy. I will do everything that I can to make medical care not be a thing that families have to worry about. If you have a prescription for any sort of medication, it should be the same price here that it is in France. It should be the same price here that it is in Mexico. You can go over the border to Mexico, go to a drugstore and buy stuff that costs like 20 times the price in this country. That needs to stop. That needs to stop. Okay?
Thank you for your question. I'm sorry to hear about your diabetes and the challenges that you're going through there. I have family of my own with diabetes, my grandfather, for example, but he has Medicare. And so I absolutely support Medicare for all. It's a bill that I'm going to co-sponsor from day one because it's a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace that the United States is the only developed country in the world that doesn't offer a single-payer system to its people. And the result is we pay significantly more money for worse outcomes. I'm not sure anyone in Canada is going bankrupt, going into debt, for getting the medical care that they need. So absolutely support Medicare for all. In addition, I also support expanding CHIP. I support expanding and strengthening Medicaid as someone who grew up on Medicaid. And another key part of this is making sure that once we pass Medicare for all, that we have enough doctors, nurses, technicians, radiologists to actually meet the demand. And so I support making post-secondary education completely free for all medical professions because it doesn't make sense that we say we need more doctors and nurses, but we're asking them to take out $300,000 in student loans. And then the final point I want to make on that is we need to fix our broken patent system that allows pharmaceutical companies to just exploit patents and increase price on essential drugs like insulin. And so let's take profit out of the equation. Let's take price out of the equation. It should just be you and your doctor deciding what's best for my health and my needs, not how much can we afford on a certain treatment or prevention method.
Thanks for that question, Campbell. Much appreciated.
Yeah, hi. My name is Veronica Fernandez. I'm actually an independent candidate for Congress in neighboring Congressional District 7. And I came here tonight because I think these forums are awesome and they're so much better than the debates because we get to hear your solutions and not just a constant regurgitation of the problems. And I really like that you talked about campaign finance reform and Medicare for all. And because campaign finance reform is rooted in every issue from healthcare to immigration, it's why we get no significant change. And what I really, when you were also talking about the property taxes, I think as candidates, it's really important that you hammer home to every voter and resident how much our property taxes are affected by the private health insurance premiums. In my town, we have over $20 million in private health insurance premiums, and it's the reasons why our teachers don't get real raises, why our cops don't get real raises. No one gets real raises, and we actually pay for people to opt out of insurance. Like if a teacher median salary in New Jersey is $66,000, and their health insurance premium through Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield is $30,565. So that's all in our property taxes. If we go to Medicare for all, if we have a single payer system, we're going to remove billions from our local state, and federal taxes. And I think that's something as candidates you really need to hammer home, especially to independents and conservatives, because that's where I see conservatives changing their thinking, is when you tell them about the fiscal benefit to having a public health care system. And I give you guys a lot of credit for doing this. Going up against the machine is so hard. I wish Menendez were here, because I would like to ask him how many petition signatures did he personally go out and get? Because I know you guys go out and you hit the streets. And wherever this ends up, please keep hammering it home, because people like you are going to make a difference, because people out here are smart and the youth are catching on to what healthcare isn't complicated. It's corrupt, and we need to change it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I hope you leave.
All right, so that was a comment, but
It was a question, like, to get to your campaign managers to hammer home the taxes, the property taxes.
all right, noted.
If I could just
I got
respond
you
to
next,
one thing
okay?
she said, because she makes a good
All
point,
right.
and it's not even just the property taxes. You pay that tax every month. It's called health insurance premiums, and they take it right out of your paycheck. And what you get for that is, well, maybe you go to the doctor, and now you have to pay co-pays and co-insurance, and you have to follow up on certain treatments, etc. So we're incredibly highly taxed already on healthcare in so many different ways, and just moving to a Medicare for all system, a public system, it's just common sense at this point. We're wasting money, and we're hurting a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I absolutely concur. So,
Okay. All right, well, thank you for that, getting that dialogue continuing, but going forward, we should just try to have a question.
Yeah, put a question at the end of it, and
Yeah, and try to be as concise as possible, and that's for everyone. So just tell us who you are and...
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Katie. Thank you for what you both are doing, because it is a lot, and, you know, I see you on that. Oh, hi, sorry. So it sounds like you both value, like, staying accountable to your constituents and, like, really representing your constituents, but valuing it and enacting it is really different. And, like, Cyrus, like, never had town halls. I don't know how he knew what people wanted. So can you, like, specifically say, like, how, if you were voted in, like, specifically how would you, like, plan to stay accountable, stay connected to what constituents want, continue getting feedback, things like that?
Thank you very much.
yes, that's easy. First of all, we are public servants. I don't know how the servant part gets thrown out of the window. It is my job, it is our job to listen to what you all want. That's it. So I will be 100% accessible. I will be out on those streets. Of course, I would have to be in Washington, D.C. and here, but I would have offices around, and it will be very easy to contact me. As a matter of fact, with this, you can contact me now. Scan it. My information's there. I get back to you. And I will continue to do that. And I have a student here who knows, she can attest, I have an open door policy. Right? Yeah, and then she's like, oh gosh. But I do, and I will continue that in Congress. That's just an easy thing it's an easy thing to do. It's our job. We have to know what you want, else how else can we do our job? We don't listen.
Okay.
Katie, I mean, that's a really fair question, right? And I think the key to good governance, to truly being representative of your community, is by going out and talking to people. So that means regularly holding town halls. That means I'm still going to be out there canvassing and talking to people when I'm in office. It means spending less time calling donors and actually spending time answering the phone at our own office for certain periods of the day, so that people can actually get to it. And the other part of it is about creating transparency. And so the reason I don't take any corporate money, no lobbyist money, is because it adds to the transparency. The people I'm accountable to are just everyday people. But also explaining and talking through and giving reasons why I voted on a certain issue, or why I'm going one way or the other. Because I'm never going to be the person, I'm never going to be the representative who says, I know the answer to absolutely everything. Because if I did that, I wouldn't be a very good representative. And so the things that I'm going to be focusing on are the core values of I think people have a right to live with dignity. I think people have a right to affordable health care. I think people have a right to live in a good home, to retire with dignity. And the question becomes, how can we best collaborate at a federal level and at a local level to make sure that we achieve those goals? And how we get there, that's something that comes through dialogue. That's something that comes from understanding what the community is going through and what they want to see as well.
Thanks, David. So let me interject for just a moment. If you guys are elected, can you commit to quarterly town halls with your constituents? This is a yes or no?
Yes,
Yeah, monthly.
Monthly, all right,
Yeah.
bold.
absolutely.
Now, this gentleman's been waiting patiently. Go ahead and introduce yourself and feel free to ask a question.
Hi, my name is Rohan, and I'm a student at Stevens Institute of Technology living in Hoboken.
That's cool. Congratulations.
Going back to the subject of election reform, we're currently seeing a lot of one-sided partisan redistricting at the state level following the 2020 census. That is increasing already highly discriminatory voter suppression. What action would you support at the federal level to curb gerrymandering and regulate state elections?
They got some smart kids at Stevens.
I'm gonna let you.
Good question.
Yeah, so one of the key pieces of legislation that I support is the For the People Act, which tackles exactly the type of gerrymandering that you just talked about. I also support the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, right? So there's so many ways in which our democracy is under attack across the country. And so making sure that we're expanding the right to vote, making it easier to vote, and not just constantly playing defense, right? So things like automatic voter registration or same-day voter registration, things like expanded early voting, universal mail-in ballots, ranked choice voting. I mean, there's so many different ways where what we truly need to do is give more power to the people, more power at the local level, at the state level, and at the federal level. And so, you know, focusing on legislation that does that is what I'm going to be doing.
All right, noted. Thank you.
Yeah, so as you all can tell, David and I have a lot of the same views. The one thing that I would like to add to what he just said was that we really need to have same-day voting, where you can vote on the same day that you register to vote. That is something that I think will make it easier because it's all about access. What Stacey Abrams did in Georgia is something that we can all be inspired by. Stacey and her team got about 1 million people who were not registered to vote because they just thought it was hard. They didn't know. So we need to make registering to vote as easy as possible, and we need to make voting itself easy as possible. Mail-in ballots, done. Same day, register, same-day voting, done. Everything, make it easier. Should not be an obstacle. We went through that already in the country, where people were not allowed to vote, and they used various tactics, and a lot of those tactics they're trying to use now, but calling them other things. So, yes, thank you.
Great. Looks like this man has a question. Go ahead, introduce yourself.
I am Brad. I live in Hoboken. Thank you very much for being here, and apologies for my being late, so I'm not going to ask questions on things that you may have already covered. I'm going to ask you a two-part quick question. The first is just throw a percentage number out there, and then tell me how you feel, emotionally, about the situation that we live in this country, where for all of the opportunity and beauty and promise, there are just a really scary number of people who have bought into, the craziest of crazy things. And I used to really enjoy debating policy with people who I felt differently with, who in some cases I have a difficult time having a rational conversation with. It's scary, it's upsetting. And so what percentage of the conservative, Republican, right, whatever framing is in the beyond, and the rest of them, we can try to win back with common sense and all, and then how do you deal with a human level, knowing that people's minds are so poisoned with lack of reality? How do you sustain yourself and do this? in the face of that?
Okay, I will.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you. That was a very good question. The Republican Party is in a crisis, okay? They have let an egomaniac fascist take over their party. The rationality that people like Liz Cheney had, and I'm a Democrat, so for me to even talk favorably towards Republicans takes a lot for me. But what Donald Trump has done with that party is pretty incredible to see. I've had conversations with people who are very rational, very nice people, but they still believe that the election was stolen. And without going into too much detail, I've asked, and it just happened to me this week, I asked the person to send me evidence of that. This is an intelligent person as well. It's like, send me evidence, because I haven't seen it, and all the cases were thrown out, and there was nothing there. Oh, I have the evidence. I'm gonna send it to you. I'm like, okay, send it. They sent me 3 videos from this guy named Navarro. That is their evidence. And there's no other evidence that he's sending me other than these 3 videos. So he is convinced that this guy Navarro is so smart and has uncovered this deep conspiracy by the Democratic Party to steal the election away from Donald Trump. So having those conversations is something that is crucial for all of us sane Democrats in this room and in the country to get them out of that mindset that this election was stolen, because they still believe it. And so it's really just saying, okay, please show me the evidence. So I'm gonna go back to that person and say, listen, I need something a little bit more concrete, not some random video from a guy named Navarro that you believe is the end all and be all for this craziness that's going on. So it's really having the conversations and being able to speak across the aisle to various groups of people. So.
Thank you.
In terms of the percentage, I don't know what that percentage is in terms of people we can get back. I think there are a couple things to comment on. First, Democrats, and their sometimes very expensive consultants love pushing the idea of moving to the middle or compromising. But what does that mean when every day that middle shifts? It goes a little bit further to the right. And so now we're not so much debating ideas as to whether or not you're a human worth loving, whether or not you're allowed to say the word gay. That's not something you can compromise on. And so, for the starters, being able to push back just as hard, continuing on to fight for the core values that I mentioned earlier, the right to live the life that you want, the right to self-identify, to receive high-quality free healthcare, the right to get a good education. All these things need to be codified, and we need to fight for them again and again and again. In terms of how I feel, it's exhausting sometimes, isn't it? You have to kind of turn off the TV and turn your head away, but
30 seconds.
I think there needs to be a whole other conversation on stopping the poisonous algorithms that are feeding the misinformation day in and day out on Twitter and Facebook, where companies and people like Zuckerberg are profiting off lies that hurt everyday people, people of color, the LGBTQ plus community, and it just needs to end. We need to put people over greed.
Thanks, Steve. All right, well. Yes, ma'am, please.
Full disclosure, I am Ani's neighbor, but I do have a question. The family Leave Act is about 30 years old now, and I'd like to know, especially in post or current COVID conditions and families needing support, what would you do to support parents with new children and those that need to take care of a loved one that is sick?
Thank you for that question. We'll start with you.
For millions of families, they don't have that. And what's more is that that particularly affects women because it prevents women from building their careers as quickly as men because they're the ones who are expected to take the leave and stay home with their children. So that on its face is unfair. And so making sure that children get the care that they need, that families are supported in that, and that we actually pass a nationwide parental leave so that in the most important time in a baby's life, the first year, that both parents are able to be with that baby, support that baby, and support each other. That, and starting off in the right way and doing that, is going to be crucial for the rest of that child's life.
No, absolutely. So what I support is for parents, the mother, or if it's two daddies, to have at least from their job paid leave for a year. Then for the following year, I think 2 years is a great amount of time for a parent to bond with the child. Once those first 2 years are gone, they're gone. So we really need a system in place where a parent can stay at home with their child for those first 2 years. Now, with another parent, it could be a single family situation like mine is, but the other, if it's a two-parent home, then the other parent should be allowed to stay home for a minimum of 3 to 6 months as well, so the family can really bond together. Now, after those 2 years, I then believe that the woman or the man can go back to their job, or they can stay at home, but at a reduced pay, probably half pay. And then third year comes, that universal pre-K. The child can then go to a pre-K program that will help set them up for our fabulous public education system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the audience? Oh, sure. Go ahead, introduce yourself and go ahead with your question.
Hey, my name is Jules. I'm wondering, the current U.S. birth rate, if you subtract immigration, is basically stagnant and will pretty soon probably decline on a net basis. Do you see that as a sustainable thing? And if you don't see that as sustainable, what specific measures would you put in place to address that, to have the birth rate grow in, like, let's say in Italy or in Japan?
So as a Black American woman, Black women have serious issues when it comes to maternal health care. Black women are more prone to dying and having complications. So with the U.S. birth rate, as you're saying, it's stagnant, I think it is important that our healthcare system is composed of people that reflect the population of the people. Right now, the charts, I just looked at a chart about a couple of weeks ago. The healthcare system, I believe, is about 70 or 75% white. That needs to change. And how do we change that? We get programs in schools that encourage young men and women of color to enter the medical field, to go in, and we train them. Also, I think that it's important that when Black women speak to their doctors about issues they're having, that they're believed. There is data that shows that Black women just are not believed by their doctors. Yes. So why does that happen? We've got to get to the bottom of that, and that is why I support, we encourage our youth to get in these health fields. Now, what I also encourage, because of the birth rate, I encourage higher immigration. Thank you. I encourage more immigrants to come to this country. We need to increase the lottery system that's there and allow more people to come in. So, thank you.
Yeah, so there are a couple components to it, right? There's absolutely the healthcare piece. Like you said, women of color are more likely to experience, miscarriages, more likely to experience other troubles during pregnancy. And so making sure that we're providing the funding for them to get the healthcare treatment they need, like the prenatal care they need, that's incredibly important. And making sure that more broadly, they're able to access the sort of parental support care, like things like IVF or adoption programs, whatever it may be. The second component to that is the economy, right? So we have an entire generation right now that's being weighed down by student loans, inflation, rising cost of healthcare. And so how can we expect people to have kids when they can't even afford to buy a house? When they can barely afford their rent? Having a kid costs, the hospital stay alone, if you're lucky, could cost $12,000. And so making the conditions right so that people can actually get the health care they need and that they're actually able to afford not just a sustainable life for themselves, but to be able to build a family, educate that child, and then create the opportunities for that child to succeed throughout life. And then the component on immigration. We need to expand the visa system. The diversity lottery is not enough. We need to actually expand the systems so that people are able to come from countries that are typically disadvantaged. The everyday people. So we have the expert visa, but we need give everyday people an opportunity to actually come here. We need to create a true pathway to citizenship for the people that are already here. And finally, I think we need to end the injustices of Border Patrol and abolish ICE and the damage that they're doing today to break up families, kick people from the country, and destroy homes.
Thank you. Introduce yourself and ask your question. It's a short mic, so thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris Longley. We hawk
Here we go.
There you go. You're going to have some fun now. Well, I first want to thank you for being really courageous, going up against the machine and so forth. Both the candidates really courageous there. My belief is most people in Hudson County working very, very hard every day. As a property owner and a taxpayer, one of the main things I'm very interested in is my tax burden. I mean, and why my property taxes are astronomical compared to other states. And you go to certain states, it's $2,000. Certain states don't even have a state income tax. And here in New Jersey, we have among number one, number two, highest burden of tax on working people. So I'd like to know, as hopefully my future congressman or congresswoman, what is your opinion on how we reduce the tax burden in New Jersey?
Well, is it your turn to start or mine? Okay.
You can go on.
I know,
You
right?
can go on.
Okay. Well, Chris, so what I think should happen is that the municipalities, these towns, should start sharing some resources, okay? And sharing some resources, that means that we are able to cut down on property taxes. If every town has the same, we have police departments, superintendents of schools, DPW, trucks, every town has those same things. And maybe there should be more study done on how those resources can be shared. I do believe that the governor has made a proposal already about the sharing of resources for some of these towns, but towns have to buy in on it. So it's out there, and I think that it should really be looked into because we already pay a lot of money in property taxes. And my mom's house in South Carolina, she pays $1,000 a year. I pay $12,000 a year. and her house is the same size as mine. And she has a bigger backyard. Okay? Thank you.
So I think as it relates to property taxes, one of the things that I support doing is reinstating the SALT deduction, so the state and local tax deduction. That was done away with the Trump tax cuts. And the reason for that is New Jersey pays across the board a disproportionately high tax rate. And in fact, we're one of the states that gives the most money in taxes and gets the least back from the federal government. So what I would be doing, in addition to working with local leaders, is making sure that we're bringing in actually the money that goes to the federal government, that we're bringing that back as resources and investments here in New Jersey, right? So the property tax goes to schools. Well, we should be making sure that the federal government is creating equity across public schools, because tying that to the property tax doesn't help anyone. What you end up with is, depending on your zip code, you could either have, an incredible school or, a school that's struggling. And so bringing in federal funds to help bridge that gap across communities and relieve the tax burden on the local level, that's something that we should be doing.
Thank you everyone for attending. Thank you for our film crew. Thank you for Mark, the Hudson reporter. Thank you, Hector. And, everyone have a great weekend. Much appreciated.